Borderline
So it
subtypes.
theorized that there are 3 clusters of borderline personality disorder. Number 1, core BPD. 2, extrovert/externalizing. And 3, schizotypal/paranoid. It's very common for people with BPD to have a co-occurring mood disorder, such as bipolar, and 54% of people in this study, anxiety disorders, substance use disorders, and eating disorders. Most common feature being avoidance, then dependence, then obsessive compulsive, and lastly, narcissistic behaviors. So I'll go into a little more what each of these clusters pertains to. The first one being core, which is the most common, 76% of the sample. Second being extrovert. Third being schizotypal. Now, core is like the typical BPD that most people know of. It's in the DSM. At this point in time, there are not any subtypes in the DSM. I'm a therapist, and I know that book like the back of my hand. But I think in the next revision, the DSM-6, that there will be. Not to mention I have BPD myself and know what the fuck I'm talking about. What's up? And you know what? The main population obviously has the lowest quality of life. Extroverts, highest quality of life, obviously. And ladies, step aside. Let's give the men some limelight because we are not the only ones. There are men that have BPD, and typically, they are the more extroverted type. I'm always going to be real with you, and the core type is the most symptomatic severity. Social inhibition, non-assertiveness, overly accommodating on one hand, while on the other hand, needing closeness and intrusive, dominant, controlling style. The main cluster has a high need for intimacy, but also feel high anxiety with intimacy. I think I'm this type. Anyway, instability in identity and self-control, and surprisingly have the lowest levels of childhood trauma. Oh, okay, I take that back. That's not me. Moving on. Isn't it fun trying to figure out who you are for the rest of your life? Hopefully not. But that's why I'm here to help you try to figure it out. Moving on to the second most common type, extrovert externalizing. Narcissistic behaviors tend to be on this side. They're very unlikely to be avoidant, and in general have less symptoms and are generally more adaptive. But they're a little self-centered and more dominant. They have a tendency to deny distress, have problems adjusting to social norms, impairments on domains of responsibility, and social concordance, meaning they struggle with trustworthiness, respect, and cooperation. Have high levels of dismissive attachment. This group has more childhood trauma, and a lot of environmental factors such as probably, social learning, observational learning. Men tend to be in this cluster. They say because they externalize their problems. I don't know if that's true for all y'all, but that's what it says. Moving on to the third type, schizotypal paranoid. Higher risk for psychosis. This group tends to be more stable functioning in terms of responsibility. They might be a little social isolated, which in turn can help them have less stress. They do have more problems being a little hostile in their dominance, which is marked by mistrust, and exhibit lower levels of self-sacrifice in comparison to the first type, the main type, and show a lack of self-confidence in addition to problems with assertiveness. So there you go. Now you know that there's possibly 3 subtypes of borderline personality disorder, I don't know if any of these ring true for you. Some of them did for me. And if you don't have BPD and you know somebody that has it, hopefully this can help you understand their symptoms and who they are and why they are the way they are. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I am a therapist. I was diagnosed about 6 years ago at the age of lucky number 27. And I also have bipolar type 1, OCD, ADHD, and ADD combined type, complex PTSD, the whole 9 yards. But I do want you to know that there's a lot of evidence out there that once diagnosed, on average, a BPD person goes into remission after 10 years. It's one of the very few mental illnesses that has a lot of empirical evidence behind it going into remission. Now, does this mean that it'll come back? I mean, let's be real, it could, but evidence shows that once you get the proper amount of therapy, which meds with BPD, meds don't specifically, are not targeted for BPD so far. But it's CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, that you need to focus on. And I think you're going to be all right. Or whoever you're watching this for is going to be all right. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more.